Ink and voice audio. The pearl of love. It is often said that a pearl's beauty surpasses even the finest of gemstones, not because of its brilliance, but because it is born of suffering, formed inside a living creature. I cannot speak to the truth of that. Pearls have never captivated me. Their misty shimmer leaves me unmoved. In much the same way, I find myself torn between interpretations of an ancient tale known as the Pearl of Love. Some regard it as the most heart-wrenching story ever told, while others view it as a graceful parable about beauty's eternal nature. Scholars of medieval Persian literature will likely know it well. Though brief in form, it has inspired a vast collection of commentary over the centuries. Interpretations have varied. Some have seen it as pure poetic invention, others as a layered allegory pointing in countless directions. Theologians have connected it with beliefs about resurrection and the afterlife, while aestheticians have embraced it as a parable about art and memory. And then there are those who claim it tells a plain and literal truth. The setting is North India, a land rich with majestic love stories. There, in a kingdom blessed with sunlight, serene lakes, dense forests, fertile valleys, and distant snow-capped peaks rising like dreams into the sky, lived a young prince who ruled all. One day, he encountered a maiden of rare beauty and grace. Enchanted, he made her his queen and surrendered his heart completely. Their love was radiant, full of hope and wonder, exceeding even the wildest dreams of what love might be. They shared this bliss for just over a year, and then fate struck. A venomous sting hidden in the undergrowth took her life. Her death left the prince shattered. For days, he lay in silence at her bedside, refusing food, paralyzed by sorrow. The court feared he would take his own life, for he had no heir, no brothers or sons to follow him. But after 2 days and nights, he rose quietly, as if a great decision had settled in his heart. He arranged for her body to be preserved in a casket made of lead and silver, placed within a larger coffin of the finest aromatic wood, adorned with gold. This, in turn, would rest in an alabaster sarcophagus inlaid with jewels. While these preparations were underway, the prince spent his time in gardens, pavilions, and rooms where they had once shared their joy. He reflected deeply on her beauty, never yielding to the ritual expressions of grief common to the time. He did not tear his clothes or cover himself in ashes. His love, too profound, called for something greater. Eventually, he addressed his advisors and people. He declared that he would never again take a wife, nor allow thoughts of women to cross his heart. Instead, he would adopt and mentor a worthy youth to inherit the throne, fulfilling his royal duties as expected. But the rest of his life, his wealth, and all his effort would be devoted to a single purpose: to build a monument worthy of his beloved. This monument would be unlike any other, a masterpiece of beauty and elegance, so magnificent that it would become a marvel for all time. People from every land would come to see it, to speak of it, and to remember the woman who had inspired its creation. He named this monument the Pearl of Love, and his people, seeing the depth of his devotion, gave him their blessing. And so he began. The prince gave his life over to the creation and embellishment of what he called the Pearl of Love. A vast foundation was carved directly from living stone in a place where one could gaze across a sweeping valley toward the gleaming white wilderness of the distant mountains. There were rolling hills, scattered villages, a winding river, and, far in the distance, 3 sprawling cities. At this sacred place, they laid the alabaster sarcophagus beneath a pavilion crafted with intricate skill. Around it, they raised columns made from rare, beautiful stone, and decorated the space with elaborately carved walls. Above it all stood a grand structure, part casket, part temple, topped with a dome, crowned with spires and smaller cupolas, shining like a jewel in the sun. The early stages of the Pearl of Love were modest compared to what it would later become. Initially, the design was more intricate and ornamental, filled with filigreed screens and slender pink-hued pillars. The sarcophagus itself appeared like a sleeping child nestled among blossoms. The first dome was a shell of green tiles bound in silver, but it failed to uplift the soul, to match the vast vision forming in the prince's mind. So he had it removed. By then, He was no longer the youthful dreamer who had once loved his radiant queen. He had become a solemn man, wholly consumed by the monument he was shaping. With each year, his knowledge and skill grew. He discovered new forms in arches and walls, new strength in materials, and learned to coax beauty from an ever-widening palette of stone and color. His sense of beauty evolved too. What once pleased him now seemed gaudy. The golden glow and ornate brilliance that had once delighted him, like the glow of an illuminated manuscript, gave way to a love for cool blues like the sky, for the faint, remote hues of distant horizons, for deep, mysterious shadows and wide, majestic bursts of purple opalescence. He lost interest in carvings and decoration, turning away from delicate artistry and placing earlier pieces inside buildings where they wouldn't interfere with his larger vision. His sense of architecture grew ever more profound. Spectators watched in reverence as the pearl of love rose skyward, its beauty expanding beyond human measure. It far surpassed their expectations. Only love could inspire such a miracle, they whispered. Women everywhere, no matter whom they loved, found themselves admiring the prince for the power and dignity of his devotion. A long, grand corridor cut through the heart of the structure, a central vista that came to matter deeply to the prince. Standing at the main inner entrance, one could see across the full length of the grand gallery, through what had once been a forest of rose-colored columns, past the central chamber where the sarcophagus lay, and out through a stunningly crafted window toward the snowy mountain king, looming 200 miles away. The columns, arches, and supporting structures stretched upward with both strength and grace, like vast angelic beings standing watch in the shadowed silence near the throne of the divine. First-time visitors felt awe. Then they shuddered. Then their spirits bowed low in reverence. Often the prince stood there too, deeply moved, always sensing something was still incomplete. He was constantly adjusting details, removing one element here, adding another there. One day, he stood long before the sarcophagus and said that it might stand more purely on its own, without the ornamental pavilion that framed it. So it was taken down. He returned the next day and said nothing. The day after, still nothing. Then for 2 days he did not come at all. When he finally returned, he was accompanied by an architect, 2 master craftsmen, and a small retinue. They all stood silently together in that vast, serene space, the culmination of countless days and years of labor. No trace of the immense work remained. It was as if the spirit of nature's own perfection had claimed the building as its own child. But one thing broke the harmony. The sarcophagus, untouched since those early days, now seemed too small. Its scale was off, interrupting the elegant flow of the great central corridor. Within it still lay the lead and silver casket that held the body of the queen, the very soul from which all this beauty had sprung. But now, that once sacred tomb appeared as no more than a dark, misplaced object in the grand sweep of the pearl of love. It was like a discarded suitcase dropped upon the radiant surface of heaven itself. The prince stood in long reflection, saying nothing. No one could guess what thoughts passed through his mind. Then, at last, he broke the silence. Pointing to the sarcophagus, he said only, "Take that thing away. Thank you for listening." If you enjoyed our recording, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel so you don't miss any future audiobooks.